Okay, welcome back to part two of our Color Basics lecture, one of the design themes for Unit 5. And when we last left off, we were talking about low intensity and neutral color organizations, and I wanted to make the case about how important like neutral colors can be, because how much color is really as much in our imagination as it is in the reality of the light that goes into our eyes. So here, a very careful painter can create the illusion of lots and lots of color through his just very careful manipulation of warm and cool. And whereas even though he's only using a palette, in terms of what colors available, he's working with very little in the way of any saturation, like maybe little hints of alizarin crimson in some places, but almost all of the shifting towards green is caused by just the natural tendency of umbers to can be green, and also especially when mixed with certain blacks. And almost all of the warmth comes from the fact that yellow ochres, which are a type of brown, and burnt siennas have a little bit of reddishness to them. So it's an earth tone plus neutral palette, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like so just like you're looking at a full color image. So the last thing I wanted to say is I wanted to get you to rethink what we started with, which was about both. We're going to look at some pairings of artwork, and I want you to think about color organization as well as how they're using intensity, value, and hue. Because intensity, value, and hue are really the core in terms of understanding color. If you can really understand how they're different from each other, then you can really start to see how color is being used in a work of art. Okay, so here we have two works of art, and they're both using sort of a kind of a triadic organization with some exceptions to that. So in and both having a large amount of kind of neutralish colors. In the case of the Michelangelo, almost everything is painted in this sort of grisaille with these few kind of spots of color. And the color is not super saturated, but probably the most saturated color is this kind of yellow orange of this draped cloth here, and then also these different kind of blues, cyan, and kind of blue violets kind of combining in places. Um, and then we have a little bit more of kind of a peachy orangish color on the inside right there. But most of the color is very neutral. And notice how, and also most of the colors are very light because it's a fresco painting. Even the most intense colors are kind of pale and light. But because of how he organizes value and because of how effectively he's using these very neutral colors, it makes these moments of more saturated color feel very, very saturated, very intense. The colors overall are much more saturated. We have much more richness of value in the Raphael, right? And the color is primarily organized around this kind of deep kind of navy blue and this kind of red, orange, red, kind of scarlet red for the top for the Madonna. And then, but is it a triadic organization? Do we say that then the next major color is the overall green? Um, and then secondarily, or maybe a fourth color would be these kind of yellow ochre based pale colors, right, in the hair and also within some of the flesh tones. And here we have two other examples, and I'm picking these two paintings both for you to think about how the choices about value and intensity, right, really affect the look of these paintings. Like, to give you an example, look at how much Rubens is kind of desaturating and decreasing the value of these kind of light cloths as they go back into this kind of uh, atmospheric space back there, right? Or how that figure is kind of, all those colors are shifting into the atmosphere of this dark shadow, and how that kind of creates a certain feeling for the painting. Um, but I also want to talk about just a hint about how these two paintings are doing something that we haven't seen before in many paintings, which is they are actually paying attention to the way ambient color works, right? They're thinking about how colors are reflected off of each other in the real world, and how color is about the color of light shining on things, and we have warm spots of light, but then we have cooler shadows, like the coolness of the shadow in here, but the warmth of the shadow there is as she's picking up the reflection of that hat. So all of those things, but once again, I want to emphasize that, and we will be talking about this portrait by Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun some more later on in the course, but I want you to really kind of notice how the way the colors work is particular to how she's organizing hue, right? But mostly intensity and value, right? How the colors shift when they get dark, how quickly do they get dark, and how much do they change in intensity as they're getting dark. And pairing these really kind of low intensity colors with colors that are just a little bit similar, but just a little bit more intense, and how much that's an important part of the way she's painting. All right, that is the end of this lecture, and next we'll be talking about the piety impulse. All right.